Okay, let's have a class, and the plan will be today we will finish our last talk of this section. We talk about overall microbial safety in the United States, and then this coming Thursday we will do a review for our exam 3. Our exam 3 is our last paper exam. And the next week, Tuesday, April 8th, will be our exam 3 open book. April 10th, we will not have a class because I was in the committee of the Davis College Research Day. So the building basically filled up with posters and oral presentation that day. So I'll just take the day off, and you guys feel free to join the different sections. Then come back. 15th, 17th, we'll have Dr. Kenny give the presentation related to the HACCP. I will briefly mention today. He will talk about details that day and also give us a talk at the MEETS lab. So that's applied microbiology. Then the April 17th, 22nd, 24th will be you guys' presentation, the group project. April 29th and the last day, May 1st, will be our lab. I teach until the last day. I like to teach, I don't want to jump it. So I hope everybody enjoys it, especially last week, that we will have a real practice in the lab. For some of you have never been in the microbiology lab, we'll do the gram stain, we'll do the isolation bacteria using streak plating, and we do spread plating, pore plating for analysis bacteria. That's a very basic tool to analyze bacteria, and also to show you how to use a microscope, because we talk about this whole semester, we haven't touched yet. Okay, so today's topic, microbial safety in the United States. Okay, there are two surveillance results from CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So foodborne illness in the United States. About 25 years ago, it's 75 million illness every year. Hospitalization, 323,000. Annually deaths is more than 5,000, cost $8.4 billion. After 10 years, because the USDA, FDA did work together, did lots of the work, lots of the policies, regulation related to the food safety. So the illness you can see per year in the United States is dramatically decreased to 78 million, and hospitalization is dramatically decreased more than half to 128,000. Deaths cut down nearly half, 3,000. But obviously we know the cost is increased by tenfold almost, because the medical biotechnology development, all those costs is increased dramatically. I always say that 10 years, from 2000 to 2010, that's a golden area for development of food microbiology. And I was lucky one of the persons that, because I got my PhD in 2009. That time is very diversified. We have a traditional methods to do the foodborne control. Molecular methods, DNA fingerprints started to show up. And everybody very exciting about those opportunities. Now these days, what do we focus on? Yes, maybe machine learning, AI technology, molecular methods is more like advanced level focus. Those traditional tools start to disappear. But by the time everything is pretty much very prolific. What are the important foodborne pathogens? Of course, there's a lot. So norovirus, I remember there is outbreaks happened in Yellowstone about 10 years ago. There are lots of tourists there and get sick and have a diarrhea, vomiting, and nausea happens. Not just to have a brief lunch at the local hamburger store. And we mentioned about the Campylobacter, Salmonella, E. coli. The E. coli 0157, non-0157. We'll talk real quick. Listeria monocytogenes and the Clostridium. These we talked already. Shigella we mentioned already, and Toxoplasma, that is a parasite. Usually in the host is a cat. So they say the pregnant woman, you should not have a cat at home. And the last one, don't forget, we have lots of the emergent organisms happened recently. Although COVID-19 is not a pathogen for foodborne pathogen, but it certainly also is let people pay much attention to those emergent pathogens could be in the food supply chain. And people also saying those type of under-researched emergent microorganisms maybe showed up every 10 or 15 years. So just want to let you know, all the pathogens could happen in the food products, but the major one are listed here, and the highlights here are the major foodborne safety concern in the United States. So here is listed top 5 pathogens cause domestic acquired foodborne illness. So you can see the number 1 is norovirus, followed by Salmonella, Clostridium, Campylobacter, and Staphylococcus. But keep in mind, the Staphylococcus aureus is widely existing on the skin surface. You don't have to report to CDC if you have the outbreaks. The others, you're required to do that. What are the top 5 pathogens cause hospitalization? Number 1 is Salmonella. Number 2 is norovirus, followed by Campylobacter, then Toxoplasma gondii, and the E. coli, Shigella toxin generating E. coli 0157. STEC stands for Shigella toxin generating. I do not like use these acronyms too much in these type of class. This is Shigella toxin. EC is E. coli. That's called Shigella toxin generating E. coli. So they should have a blanket called generating E. coli. That's called STEC. We'll talk about Shigella toxin real quick. What are the top 5 pathogens cause foodborne illness resulting in death? Number 1 is Salmonella. And very surprisingly, we just write E. coli 0157H7. It's not the first one cause death. Causing the death, the number 1 is Salmonella, followed by Toxoplasma gondii, then Listeria monocytogenes, and norovirus, and Campylobacter. So, if you look at the news, what are the foodborne pathogens concerned? On the fresh meat, we consume Salmonella and Campylobacter. That is basically poultry meat we talk about. How about on the beef steaks? We care about the E. coli 0157H7, non-0157 Shigella toxin generate E. coli. Ready-to-eat meat and the poultry, you see the hot dogs there, the beef frankfurters. What do we consume? Listeria monocytogenes. How about the fruits and the vegetables? We concern about Salmonella on the tomatoes, E. coli 0157H7 on leafy green like lettuce. Norovirus basically could go everywhere. So these are the major concerns. And you see the news all the time. There is 500,000 pounds of the ground beef is recalled in plants in Nebraska, for example, because of the possible E. coli 0157H7 contamination. And you see there is 500,000 pounds of the hot dogs recalled in certain stores because of the possible Listeria monocytogenes contamination. So these are the things, the pathogen what we are really concerned about. So let's talk about these things. Listeria. Major Listeria have 6 species. So we know that binomial nomenclature, Listeria is a genus name and monocytogenes is a species name. So we have Listeria, genus name, monocytogenes, species name. This is a major pathogen. Listeria inocia, the second one. This is usually, we call it a surrogate bacteria. Surrogate bacteria, which means those are not really pathogen. All we can say, They are biosafety level 1. They are not biosafety level 2. In some of the places, when we do the validation study of the antimicrobials, we cannot use biosafety level 2 pathogen. We have to use biosafety level 1. At that moment, we have to use Listeria inocia instead of use monocytogenes. However, it all requires you to do is a validation study to make sure the behavior of inocia and the monocytogenes are the same, or even inocia is more resistant to the heat treatment or to the antimicrobial treatment. And then you find the other species like Aguera, Ivanovi, Wishmeri, and Greeny. Those are basically is from the soil. So Listeria is originally from the soil. This picture shows you very clear a bacterial Listeria growing on the blood agar. You see the transparent zone, that's called the hemolytic zone, which means it's very invasive, could go to the bloodstream cells. Now, Listeria monocytogenes, we mentioned earlier, this is a gram-positive bacteria. It's very strong moving capability. So we call it a petrotrichus because the flagella is covered the surface. We call it a facultative anaerobes. Do you still remember what that means? Which means grow both in the presence and absence of oxygen, but grow better with oxygen. That's called the facultative anaerobes. And this is also hemolysin positive, cause Listeria lysine. Now, in the United States, we basically isolated 13 serotypes of Listeria monocytogenes. And we find that the surveillance survey from the listeriosis cases, 95% are from the stereotypes 0.5A, 0.5B, and 4B. And the cerebral for the 4B accounts for about 65 to 80% of the Listeria monocytogenes streams in North America. So what are the Listeria monocytogenes characteristics? They listed here a lot, but which one is more important? I want to mention one thing first. Are very special to lots of the other bacteria, like E. coli, like Salmonella. If on this slide, the most important thing, gonna let it be an excellent pathogen related to public health, is they can grow down to a minimum range of 0.5 to 3 degrees Celsius. What this means, this pathogen can grow in the refrigerator. That is a problem. Because lots of the time we put the food products, package, put in the refrigerator, we think it could be stay there for a while, it will not grow. But Listeria monocytogenes is the exception, it can grow. And we gave them a terminology, we call it a saccharose. What else we have? They can grow up to 10% of the salt. So that's a halophiles. Remember we talked about the salt? That could be up to 10% of the sodium chloride solution. This is really high. And it's evenly higher than the hot dogs. So hot dog is not a healthy food. We call it high fat and also high salt. How high it is? A salt about 6%. This can grow as 10%. And you see the pH grow range 4.1 to 9.6. It's a huge range in acid and alkaline environments. And this is even at very low water activities they can grow. So water activity above 0.1 to 0.92, do you know which products is like that? It's usually beef jerky and summer sausage. Not really hot dog. Hot dog is very high, the water activity. Now, this is kind of very ironic. Listeria monocytogenes is also growing in the lab very easily, but sometimes they need extra nutrients like B vitamin and amino acids requirements. So it's very interesting. The Listeria mouse autogenous grow typically it can grow at a high salt environment and in the refrigerator temperature. This is a reason why 25 years ago, this pathogen related to ready-to-eat meat outbreaks in the United States. And also this pathogen will cause miscarriage. So if you do a public health education, the woman at pregnant, they should not eat directly to eat open bags of the hot dogs and the daily meats. The best way to do is you microwave like 30 seconds. At least the bacteria on the surface will be killed because it's related to the stillbirth and the miscarriage. So you can see from 1998 to 1999, 108 cases, 18 deaths. 2000, 29 deaths, 29 cases, 7 deaths. Daily poultry products, 2002, you have 46 cases and 10 deaths in 8 states. This caused around more than $50 million in the United States. So one of my PhD research was to validation the antimicrobials as a food ingredients using on the food surface or as ingredients in the formula to control Listeria mouse autogenous on the hot dogs. And I published 2 papers there by the time. That's one of my PhD dissertation back almost 20 years ago. So the survey in 2011 has been found Listeria causes approximately 1,600 foodborne illness, 1,500 hospitalization, and resulted 260 deaths in the United States every year. So therefore, the USDA FSIS, that's the United States Department of Agriculture, Food Safety Inspection Service, have 3 alternatives. One of 3 alternatives. That is post-lacerative treatment with antimicrobials. The second one is post-lacerative treatment or using antimicrobials. Now, lots of the people don't want to do anything. They said, I don't want to do any of the treatments. I don't want to use antimicrobials. I'm going to keep it natural. What do you have to do? Sanitation and more frequent microbial sampling. And the microbial sampling, we have a class 1 and a class 2. Different category. It's talked about in the food microbiology class. We just skip that. Just want to let you know that FSIS did something since the outbreaks happens. Okay. That's for Listeria. Okay. Yes.
What was that second point on?
All. This is with. This is all. What means that? The hot dog you have to cook at 180 degrees Celsius. After you cooking, you could dipping into lactic acid solution. That's called whiz. What means all? You either fully cooked or you doesn't dip in. That's called all. This means antimicrobial treatments is a choice. Now, where are those antimicrobials? You need to go to USDA FSIS website. They have a long list, everything, required name, how we gonna do. Sometimes they say on, which means you're only gonna do on the surface. If they say in, you can use that as ingredients. And then the last column is the concentration. And the concentration lots of the time is milligram per gram. Then you have to transfer to ppm or percentage. It's very confusing. Now, there are lots of people saying, I don't want to do anything. Then you have to do SSOP, sanitation standard operation procedure, and the microbial testing. But this is very tricky because testing negative doesn't mean there's no pathogen there. So there is a formula called class 1, class 2, but that last one will be very challenging. Okay, that's Listeria monocytogenes. This is the E. coli we talked about at the beginning. They are basically related to the pathogenic E. coli. There are 4 different categories, which is enterotoxigenic, ETEC, enteropathogenic, EPEC, enteroinvasive, EIEC, and enterohemorrhagic, EHEC. We talk about the E. coli over 57H7 is EHEC, is that category. Okay, what is happens E. coli over 57H7? So this is a long story. Over 57H7 happened almost 40 years ago in Oregon and Michigan in the ground beef outbreaks. Why? They will cause, in addition to diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain, all those very traditional foodborne illness symptoms, they will cause a typical symptom, which is called HUS. What is the full name? Hemolytic uremic syndrome. That's called HUS. What's the symptoms for that? Is bloody kidney with water diarrhea. And this could be invasive to the neurological system, called paralyzed later on. And this rate is very high. It's about 5% lethality rate. That's very high for a foodborne pathogen. And the risk group is usually children and older people. Now, immune-compromised patients also could be the category, and a pregnant woman also could be the category, but more important, this is for the children and the older people. And I just mentioned at 1982, nobody cares. But this thing happens. I'll go back to talk about another slides. This is what happened. This outbreak is a milestone of the foodborne safety, of the food safety, for the microbial safety in the United States. It is 1993, Jack in Box in Seattle, Washington. People eat hamburger, which is undercooked, get contaminated with E. coli 057H7. And 171 people hospitalization. Majority of them less than 10 years old. 45 infected children require hospitalization. 38 have severe kidney problems, and 4 of the kids are dead. That's the most tragedy. Outbreaks happen in the United States. You see how young they are. The youngest one, Katie Cornell, is only 1 year, 6 months, because his father later on studied a PhD for food safety and become a Netflix Emmy Award documentary filmer, all kinds of things he did to try to help people to avoid the foodborne pathogen. Yesterday, just at his LinkedIn account, he wrote a whole paragraph because we find one active case of avian flu in Louisiana. Is that right? Because when people died. So he wrote, he's very passionate about these things. And the lawsuit is always going on. I don't think it's settled down even after like 20 years. Because of this, people come out with this guy. So just want to let you know, this is a major outbreaks in the United States. Why? The reason is E. coli over 57H7. They will create Shigella toxin. Shigella toxin have Shigella toxin 1 and Shigella toxin 2. basically Shigella toxin 2. They have a very well-recognized affinity on the kidney in CB3. They can connect and attach very well and very firmly. And this toxin is also an AB toxin. And we talk about it's a toxin domain, a transmembrane domain, toxin domain. They go to the GB3, sorry, not CB3, GB3 in the kidney area. They can affirm very well, then cause hemorrhagic uremic syndrome. And for the young people, will cause death. That's the reason. So, what we should do, whenever you eat a steaks, or we say it's a non-intact beef products, including your mechanical tenderized, chemical tenderized, or reconstructed, you should do a well cooking. That's cooked to the internal temperature of 71 degrees Celsius. The research has been done, it will killing E. coli 015-7H7. Now, why there is a problem for the temperature? This is a reason why beef is a product, is a public health threatening. The reason is, when we talk about beef, what we care about 3 things. Tenderness, juiciness, and the flavor. Do you think which one is the most people care about? Is the tenderness. And more than 52% of the surveillance by NCBA, National Cattlemen's Beef Association in the United States, they want to pick them is more tender. Even people wanted to pay $5 extra if it's more tender. So how we measure the tenderness? We're using shear force value, which means a cut value, how hard to cut it. They don't care about juiciness and flavor too much. Tenderness is number 1. So once you do tenderness, what you should do? You're not gonna cook very high temperature. If you cook to long temperature, long time cooking, it's like a stone ladle, too tough. Doesn't like it. People like them have a little bit of greenish color, a little pink to medium well done, medium. But there's a risk for that. So that's why it's always a challenge. You gotta find a balance between the tenderness and the food safety. Another thing I also wanted to mention, lots of people doesn't recognize. This is the internal temperature. What this means? It's a beef steak like this. That 160 degrees Fahrenheit and 71.1 is not on the surface. It's not here, it's not here. What is the internal? That's geometric center. That referred as internal. This will take you longer time to reach there. And the cooking is a longer process. So that's why I want to tell you, this slide is important for you, healthy, for your public health, but you have to understand that that's the internal temperature. It's not on the surface. You cannot see on the surface once it's turns brownish, it's ready. So what we should do? How do you know the internal temperature? We need to use a thermometer. It's a digital thermometer. You put it inside in the geometric center. When you see it's reached 71.1 degrees Celsius, and maybe it's ready to go. And you also need to know, like the T-bone steaks, it's a very unique and uniform geometric formula, dimension we can say. Some of them are not. They just pick up big chunks of that. That's not difficult, sometimes difficult to find a geometric center. Okay, so just want to let you know that's what the cooking, the guidance for. Okay, because of this outbreak, it touched the nerve of the White House by the time. So, the time the president is Bill Clinton and the Vice President Al Gore working with the Congress to need to have some regulation for the food safety. They comes out with HACCP. What is HACCP? Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. It is a preventive system of quality. originally come from Fewsbury Company in 1959. Because by the time they want to create the food products is for astronauts go to the space. Obviously, they cannot have any pathogen, which has to be zero tolerance. Because if you have any pathogens there, people are going to be dying. Nobody can save their life. Okay, so that's why the system is coming from there. It is based on hazard analysis, and I want to say this is a proactive system, but does not guarantee food safety. This is the principles. In 1996, the Congress published a law, Federal Register, from Department of Agriculture for the Safety Inspection Service. Code of Federal Register, the name as pathogen reduction, hazard analysis, and the critical control point system. They listed 7 principles, including conduct a hazard analysis. Okay, what is a hazard analysis we're going to do? We need to determine biological, physical, and the chemical hazards. Biological hazards, obviously, E. coli 157H7 is biological hazards. That's conduct a hazard analysis. Determine critical control points, which means a step at the food processing can be minimized or eliminate foodborne pathogen to below detector limit or below the regulation. That's called the critical control points. Corresponding to critical control points, there is a parameter, which is a physical parameter called the critical limits. So for example, during the cooking, the critical control points obviously is cooking. What is critical limits? 71.1 degrees Celsius is critical limits. It's a physical value for the temperature. You must reach that to meet the CCP. Number 4, establish monitoring procedures to monitor CCP. You need to have a monitoring procedures to make sure the temperature is reached 71.1 degrees Celsius. So you do a double checking of the thermometer. It is one of the ways as a monitoring procedures. Okay, if anything bad happens, we call deviation happened, what we need to do? We need to establish corrective actions. So the corrective actions needs to show you, need to document it, what we should do. So for example, 71.1 degrees Celsius didn't reach. What's happened? Maybe you didn't check the temperature. Maybe the thermometer is broken. Maybe the cooking machine is broken. So what do we should do? Corrective actions. We have to do something. Okay, establish verification procedures. How do we know the 71.1 degrees Celsius is CCP worked well? We need to do a validation study. Usually it's a challenge study. And that study can be done in-house in the company or can be done as third party consulting groups. Last, very important, order record and documentation you have to well established. That's called established record keeping and documentation procedure. I give you a very brief introduction here. Dr. Kenny at the class of April 15th, the guest lecture will give you much more detail, talk about sanitation and hazard. These 7 principles is a proactive way for the foodborne pathogen control, which required by USDA FSIs for all the meat and the poultry processing plants to establish. Of course, they give a very small processors extra time. So very small processors allow you to have 5-6 years later, until 2000 to have their plan. Now, if they need help, what they should do? They need to log in for all of the person working the extension services, like WVU. For example, I'm an extension service person, and also find a person at the Pennsylvania State University, the Department of Food Science. They have a very good extension program also. One more thing I want to mention. We talk about HACCP. Coming from is the E. coli 0157H7 outbreak. Look at it here, said pathogen reduction. In this document, it's not 0157H7. It's Salmonella and the biotype 1 E. coli. So it's very ironic. They mention about the pathogen reduction Salmonella, and also biotype 1 E. coli. It's like a surrogate for E. coli 0157H7. Okay, once HACCP established, do you think there's no outbreaks? Of course there is. You look at here. Just to give you some examples. In 1997, E. coli 157H7, 12 million kilograms recalls. In 2002, beef trimmings and ground beef, E. coli 157H7 possibly contaminated 9 million kilograms in July 2002. In 2007, mechanical tenderized and injected beef contaminated with E. coli 157H7, 116,000 kilograms. So, these things keep happening. Until 2012. The FSIS has new regulation. They find that not only 0157H7, there are other 6 species, 026, 045, 0103, 0111, 0102, 0145 is also a Shigella toxin creating E. coli. They are at the same risk as E. coli 0157H7. So when we preparing the meat products, we need to make sure the zero tolerance for E. coli 0157H7, and all these are also zero tolerance. We call zero tolerance for big 6. Those 6 strains are big 6. Okay, plus E. coli 0157H7. These big 6 we call non-0157 Shigella toxin generate E. coli. Acronym STEC. When this regulation comes out in 2012, almost all the university in the United States is developing rapid testing methods. So by the time, there is a joke called the USA. Universal STAC assay. This is everybody looking for. Now, how the companies they do? Usually they do is that you have a beef, let's say 100 grams or a pound, put in a large bag with enrichment of the medium. Then you put at 42 degrees Celsius for 9 hours. Remember, E. coli 0157H7, same as Salmonella, we call it a mesophile. They can grow up to 45 degrees Celsius. At 42 degrees Celsius, they grow dramatically. So after 9 hours, we go to run a general PCR, polymerase chain reaction, using a very basic molecular method to see is there positive or negative, which is a band showing up after electrophoresis. If it's positive, then we go back to isolation the bacteria or McConkey agar. try to get, then we could do a sequencing. We see the species. So that's what happened for these non-O157H7. Now we go back to another question. What is O157H7 means? What is O? Ceramic. It's modified sugar. What is H? Flagella. Those are antigen. And we gave them an ID number 0157 and H7, like you gave yourself a WVU ID. Now all these are serological typing, which is people find it. So they gave them 026, 45, 101, 111, 121, and 145. That's what we call non-O157 STEC. Okay. This is on the meat. What do you think fresh produce? People always think fresh produce is safe. This is what we eat. We open a bag, we use our hands to eat it, or we dip it in the dressing. Nobody ever questioned it until this happens. That's 2006 in Salinas. So you know California, San Francisco, San Diego inside, Los Angeles, San Jose inside, Los Angeles, San Diego, Central Valley here. Salinas is a big producer of the fresh produce in the whole United States. There are 3 major companies there: Dow, Fresh Express, and the Taylor Farms. So today you go buy a juice or a bag of salads, you go Kruger, you will find it said Dow, it said Fresh Express. 90% of the fresh produce coming from there. What else comes from? Yuma, Arizona. Tomato coming from Florida. That is the reason. If you're looking for a program for the fresh produce microbial safety at Sacramento, University of California at Davis, because UC Davis is a very good school. University of Arizona right here, close to the Yuma, is a good school. And University of Florida is a good one for tomato microbial safety. This is the first time people find in a packaged salads get isolation of a single colony of E. coli 0157H7. This outbreak is huge. It's causing nearly 200 persons, 26 states, 51% hospitalization. Among them, 71% female, 11% children under 5 years old, and caused 3 deaths. Because of these outbreaks, back 20 years ago, USDA, NIFA, which is National Institute of Food and Agriculture, the funding agency, put a huge money to do the research to prevent foodborne pathogen during the produce supply chain. I remember by the time Dr. Michael Doyle and his postdoctor had some presentation at the International Association for the Protection meeting. I was a graduate student, so I want to go there to listen. The room you cannot even touching because filled up with everybody everywhere. So this is a major outbreaks happened in the United States history about fresh produce. Okay, later on, 5 years later, a more severe happens. This is some of you knows about it. It's Listeria mouse autogenous related to the cantaloupes from Jason Farms at Colorado. So Colorado right there. And the cause, 147 people infected from 28 states, 33 deaths. So 15 years ago, by this time around, everybody in the United States is focused on cantaloupes for Listeria mouse autogenous. Why? It's a huge risk. And also, cantaloupe surface, there's a lot of squash there, a niche there. Bacteria goes there will cause what's the problem? Biofilm. If you failed to do the daily sanitation and the operation procedure, the biofilm will be formed, and they will be highly resistant to the sanitizer, such as chlorine, such as peroxyacetic acid. And very ironically is the Jason Farms, before the outbreaks happens, they passed the third-party audition test, get like A+ score, which is 95%. But 1 week later, this happens. And the FDA person goes there, find they did a horrible job of the sanitation standard operation procedure. Because of this, Listeria monocytogenes is recognized as an emergent but under-researched pathogen on fresh produce. It's well recognized in the meat products. Is that right? On the ready-to-eat meat. On fresh produce, it is under-researched. Okay, we have to do something. All these outbreaks happens. 2011, January 1st, a brand new regulation comes out called the Food Safety Modernization Act, signed by President Barack Obama into the law. FSMA is regulated by FDA. There are 7 major rules. It's more than 3,000 pages, maybe. But does not mean every single item is related to our life. They relate to our life is only those 2. Number 1 is produce safety. That's standards for growing, harvesting, packing, and finally consumption. So all the way from farm to table. Second is preventive control for human food. I read through all these things. I also get a training myself. Preventive control is very similar to HACCP. The only difference is they add new items there is allergy. So peanuts, fish, egg, all kinds of these things add allergy for them. There's more new regulation for that.